We are going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you for joining us for another golden conversation when we expect another informative and educational program for our older adults community. And today is one in which we will be informing our community as well as entertaining, educating, and just learning and celebrating our elders, of course. As you already know, it's the second Tuesday, and this is our chill spot, 6 p.m. for our senior citizens every second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. This is where we come together and we discuss matters of interest to our senior community. It gives me great joy to be talking today about elder abuse. And with me, joining us, I should say, is the accomplished Tamara Francis Riley Dunn. Welcome to Golden Designs, Golden
Thank you.
Conversations, Mrs. Riley Dunn. That's our
Thank you
sister
so much.
company.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure being here today.
Wonderful. So, as I said before, we will be talking about elder abuse. World Elder Abuse Awareness Day is annually observed on June 15, which will be tomorrow. This day aims to draw attention to the impact of elder abuse. It also highlights how the abuse is perpetuated and what can be done to combat elder abuse. To properly guide us on how to identify, prevent, and protect elders against abuse is Mrs. Riley Dawn. And for those who are unaware as to what is elder abuse, as defined by the United Nations, it is a single or repeated act or lack of appropriate action occurring within any relationship where there is an expectation of trust, which causes harm or distress to an older person. And Mrs. Riley Dunn will be breaking down that definition for us on Golden Conversations this evening. But before I bring her into the discussion, let me just tell you what is the theme for this year's observation. It is building strong support for elders. And that's exactly what we aim to do for our seniors on this evening's program of Golden Conversations. So let me tell you about our guest, Mrs. Riley Dunn. She is an attorney at law, a motivated, personable, and business professional with a successful 22-year track record of practicing law in Jamaica. You don't know, she has the experience. She has her own firm too that specializes in family law, land law, and commercial law with an emphasis on debt collection. She has also sat on the mental health board for 2 years. Mrs. Riley Dunn has worked for many years with the University of the West Indies mentorship program. She has also given up her time freely with the Musgrave Home and various community and church charities. But it would be wrong of me if I do not mention that she is a proud member of the Rotary International and has been elected to assume the role of president of the Rotary Club of Trafalgar New Heights effective July 1, 2022. Congratulations, Mrs. Riley Dunn. Therefore, followers, viewers, subscribers, our guest is fully experienced to talk to us about elder abuse. I've talked enough. Now it's turn to hear what Mrs. Riley Dunn has to say about elder abuse. Mrs. Riley Dunn, I mentioned briefly the UN definition. Under the laws, what is elder abuse?
Well, it encapsulates so many things, and I do like the UN definition of elder abuse. But implicit in that definition is that elder abuse encapsulates the notion of vulnerability and dependence. So, those are the two elements. It is accepted that our elders, whether it's defined as 60 upwards or 65 upwards depending on the jurisdiction, it's it's a knowledge that we're dealing with a vulnerable group of persons, persons who, by reason of their vulnerability, are in a position where they're dependent on others. And it is right in that area of dependence and vulnerability that abuse can occur.
In that moment of dependency, vulnerability, those are two very strong words. And can you give some instances in which seniors may be vulnerable?
Oh, from my experience, I can tell you that I have seen it financially. That's the first one.
Mm.
We would have all read just this week, I believe, or it was late last week, that an elderly woman was scammed out of practically her entire life savings.
Right.
We have that is a stranger, but we have situations where elders' accounts are completely cleaned up by persons who they know. I've had situations where persons carry transfers, instrument of transfers for the very home and the very roof that is over their heads, for them to transfer to the names of so-called family members and relatives, right? So the abuse happens financially. Then
Mhm.
we have medical neglect. Medical neglect is where you know that you have the duty, whether it is to fulfill that prescription, whether it is for you to carry that elder to the hospital or to get frequent medical attention, and you just don't do it. Several years ago, I had a really bad case, but that by the time we were able to get in and get in professionals, this elder was filled with bed sores, never moved, never
Wow.
attended to. So that is another aspect. And you can see that in our hospitals, in our nursing homes, or other places where they are supposed to attend to seniors. Sometimes seniors stay at their homes in the care of a housekeeper who isn't really qualified medically to care for
Mhm.
them, but that is a situation that they're placed in. And so that is medical neglect. That's another aspect. You have, of course, unfortunately, you have physical abuse, domestic
Mhm.
violence, restraint, assault, sexual offenses. You have the psychological abuse, verbal abuse, um, the whining, the tirades, uh,
Mhm.
you
The
know, and
shouting,
then the
the
shouting,
impatience.
impatience, exactly, especially for persons who are suffering from dementia. I see the psychological abuse more because they don't have the patience. Persons who are taking care of them don't have the patience to deal with them. Then you
Mhm.
have the emotional neglect, that telephone call, that visit. But then that's a minor part of it. Let's talk about the increase where I deliberately withhold it as a method of controlling you. That's where it becomes abusive.
Oh.
Yes, harassment, threats. So, financial, physical, and psychological are the three major areas of abuse.
Mhm. It sounds so wide though. And when a definition is so wide as it pertains to dependency, vulnerability, that falls under abuse, what pieces of legislation do we have in Jamaica that can protect our seniors against abuse?
All right, so let's talk about the legislation. So, first, we don't have a singular piece of legislation in Jamaica that deals specifically with elder care.
Unlike with our younger counterparts, where we have the Child
Exactly.
Protection Act, and
Exactly. So
okay.
we have Child Protection Act that deals with abuse. We have CPFSA, which is doing a fantastic job in terms of regulating that law and ensuring that the laws is monitored and
Mm-hmm.
enforced. And you also have different child agencies that are dedicated to plugging
Mm-hmm.
the holes and enforcing.
Right.
We do not have that kind of mechanism in Jamaica in terms of an
Mm.
elder approach. What we do have bits and pieces in terms of the movement. And I like the analogy that you gave me with the Child Act, because I would want to, at this point, if you would allow me, to talk about what other countries are doing
Oh,
in
sure. Can
terms.
we learn from our neighbors?
That is correct. So I went way out first. So I went all the way to Australia. In Australia, their aging population, and they define aging as over 65.
Mm-hmm.
That makes up about 15% of their population. In Jamaica, the last statistics I read was about 12%, between 10 and 12% of our
Right.
population. So it's
And we
comparable.
and our senior population, by our definition, starts at age 60.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Okay. All
As
right.
opposed to 65
To
for
five.
Australia.
All right.
Exactly.
All right.
So you,
12%.
you're getting
Okay.
the numbers right.
Right.
So
We're following. We're following.
right.
And that's
So
12% of approximately 2.6, 2.8 million people thereabout. All right.
thereabout,
Okay.
yes.
So we're getting
So
the
it's a
numbers.
large enough population and comparable. Australia's not a huge country with millions and millions, but of course, way more than us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to note that up to last year, Australia never had a singular act for elder care.
Mm.
And this is a country that has a plethora of socially geared acts that deals with every aspect of life. And they never had
Mm.
an elder act. And that I found very interesting. So that was my little tidbit to go
It
all over
is.
now. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing
That was
that.
my little crumb to going all over to
Mhm.
say, okay, let me see what else other persons are doing. Let's see what we're doing.
Right.
Because I know that in Jamaica we start to tout and say, oh, we need an elder act. But what does that look like? What does it
Mm-hmm.
look like? So I went to our goodly neighbors, the mothership, the United Kingdom.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And they also don't have an elder act. They don't. What they have are many acts that deal with those three big areas that I just spoke about:
Okay.
psychological, financial, right, and the physical. So
Okay.
they dealt with it, and I found it very interesting the way that they dealt with it. Is that they looked at what are the complaints. So let's use the examples that we just spoke about. Uh, Abuse at home. So what they did is that they came up with an act that's called the Social Caregiver Act. And that act says that anyone who is taking care of the elderly, they term it as vulnerable, must,
Mm.
not maybe, perhaps, but must have some medical training of some kind.
Okay.
So you
So
can't
even
appoint
a
a person.
relative, so even
Yes,
a daughter, a son, or a niece who is taking care of mommy, daddy, or grand aunt or grand uncle.
that's right. If you are going to assume that care, you must get some training. You can't just take up yourself with absolutely no medical training and take care of somebody who needs medical care.
Let's
It is such
understand
a
this.
no-brainer, isn't
But let's
it?
understand this, Mrs. Riley Dunn. Even if that caregiver is a dependent of
Yes,
the senior citizen.
yes.
Mm.
You must get some training of some kind, because they're going to hold you to a particular standard. So if you are touting, as let's say as a grandchild, I'm taking care of my elderly grandparents,
Mm-hmm.
you have assumed the role of a caregiver. And in their law, you are obligated to take care of this person. And if you fail to take care of them with the due standard of care that they have outlined and defined with particular detail, you can be held liable. You can be placed in prison. You can be sued. So there are consequences to it. But if you really think about it, if you say, okay, this person has hypertension
Right.
diabetes, and it's
Yes.
in the care of of a relative that doesn't even know what hypertension is.
Mm-hmm.
It makes no
Mm-hmm.
sense. So at the very least, you should get some understanding in taking
Mm-hmm.
care. So that is one of,
And that somewhat
yes,
removes the excuses of I didn't know this is how I should have reacted, or how I should have treated my loved one, because I
exactly,
wasn't able to identify the signs, because we do hear that a lot within our jurisdiction. Sometimes when dependents are being charged for elder abuse, they say, oh, I didn't know.
exactly. And
Interesting.
because that is such a popular thing, is why in Jamaica we should now put in an obligation. And
Yes.
anybody should not be taking care of persons who need medical attention. Yes?
Right. Yes, yes,
So
yes.
that's the first thing. I was really excited. So I continued reading, right?
Yes.
So
We
they
like
had,
research.
yes. So now they had another act, which is a general act that covers all populations, but they spoke as well about protection from harassment.
Mm.
So, and they put in that protection from harassment a clause that deals with vulnerable persons. So that's now the psychological abuse, because you have some
Mhm.
persons that would just continue to just ride you mentally, that becomes frustrating. Or you will hear some Jamaicans would say, I can't take the noise. And so they
Mhm.
eventually just cave into a situation simply because of the harassment. That
Right.
nowadays is telephone calls from scammers, telephone calls even from relatives asking, and come
Mhm.
popping over. Once it crosses a threshold into harassment, then that is something that the law can now come into.
Nice.
Don't
Okay.
have a harassment legislation to even protect you and I from
Mhm.
being stalked, cyber
Mhm.
stalked.
Mhm.
You know, it has to get to the level, because we do have something called the Domestic Violence Act that does
Mhm.
cover our vulnerables, including our elders, but it has to rise above the level of what Jamaican police may just see as, them just annoying you, right?
Mhm.
It has
Mhm.
to be that there is some threat of violence, but sometimes it doesn't come with a threat of violence. It may come with, I need you to give me some money. I've asked today, you give me
Mhm.
$100, $1,000. I need some more tomorrow. I need some more next week, and
Right.
that becomes harassing. And so there is that legislation. But what I really loved, and it brought me back right to what we have done with child care that works in Jamaica, is that they have a dedicated foundation. They have dedicated tip lines. So it is anonymous. You can call in. You know what I said? I see Mass Joe daughter just fling up a stone after Mass Joe, and that don't
Mhm.
look good.
Mhm.
And there's a
Mhm.
response system similar to
Right.
what we
Right.
have for children, that we can really implement here and set it up as a dedicated system. So that's what
Right.
we're doing in the
And
UK
and and
around
it's
it.
it's interesting that you made that comparison, because there is also another clause within our Child Protection Act that says if you see and know and don't report,
You
you
can
can
make
be
a no.
charged.
Yes,
Right,
exactly.
right. So
And
just
so,
imagine if we had a similar act for our seniors, in which neighbors or the community sees and know and don't say something, then that makes it elder care now becomes a community.
exactly,
Right. Yes.
community responsibility.
Yes.
Um, and so that is in a tidbit in terms of what they do in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
In Canada, no elder act, but they're also doing something right too, which is they have a criminal code that says, look here, and I want to read it how I love it. Hold on. They say,
I'm loving the research. I we do learn from first world countries, especially when we see similar incidences in our own country, what can be implemented to protect our seniors.
exactly. So they
Right?
have a general criminal code that deals with the entire society. So it's not just elder alone. But here is a clause that they have. It says everyone is under a legal duty. They speak about the parent, but I'm going to skip over that. To provide
Okay.
necessaries of life to a person under his charge, if that person is unable by reason of detention, age, illness, mental disorder, or any other cause to withdraw himself from that charge. Now, you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Vulnerability and
Mm-hmm.
dependency.
Mm-hmm.
So if that person under your charge is unable to remove themselves under your charge, it means that you are responsible to provide the necessaries of life. Now, this is what they have used to prosecute any attempt at elder abuse. So
Right.
they have done cases under there where there's medical neglect, where there is a failure to provide for an elder financially. And
Mm-hmm.
so they keep it very broad
Broad.
and allow
Yes.
for movements in reality. I always tell people
Mm-hmm.
when I always talk about keeping things broad for movements in reality, I am
Mm-hmm.
not old. I'm going to own that up now. I'm not old. But I remember I remember cell phones being only in the car, stationary, and then in
Right.
a short space of time, it got the brick. And a very short space of time, we had something else. And now we have them so tiny and light in a short
Yes.
period of time.
Yes.
That's how we transition in life. And so, if the
Mm-hmm.
transition in terms of um, technology and communication, even for this, for us to be on YouTube live,
Yes. Live.
able to do a show like this,
And with our
uh,
seniors
30 years ago,
online.
30 years
And they are
ago,
commenting. So
exactly.
we thank them.
30 years ago, we wouldn't have this. We didn't have
Right.
this. We wouldn't have had Zoom during COVID to be able to continue with our lives. And so, too, the law has to be able to provide for some fluidity because people are very creative in what they do. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what Canada's done. They haven't created any stricture of laws. They've just had this whole wide thing that says if you're responsible for necessities of life and I'm not able to withdraw from your care, then guess what? You are fully responsible for me. And if there's any breach of your duty, then the law can step in.
That's like a reverse of the roles when the parent was in charge of the child, and now the child may be in charge of the parent, and so they have to provide for the necessities of life.
Exactly. So
Wonderful,
what do we
Canada.
have? Yes, that is Canada. So what do we have in Jamaica? So I come right back. And I should say too, our Caribbean nations do not have an Elder Act either. They're pretty much like us that have a number of different acts and policies. So in 2012, there was a San Jose um, policy for Chart of Rights for older persons in Latin America and the Caribbean. And that was initiated in 2012. We are a signatory to that. And so, as a result of that, was born our national policy for senior citizen, which is in
Citizens.
2018.
Right.
Now, what we have like the Nursing Act, Nursing Homes Act. We have,
Mm.
and I'm going to share this because maybe my seniors here don't know this. Do you know that seniors are provided for under the Maintenance Act? So the same act that provides for children also provides an obligation at law
Mm-hmm.
for children to care
Mm-hmm.
for their parents financially. And the
Mm.
requirements are the same. Am I your dependent? Do I have a need? And do you have the ability to maintain? And if you do, then you must maintain me. So it means that that grandparents, and it covers grandparents and parents, can um, bring an action in court for maintenance if you need
Maintenance Act.
under
So
the new.
repeat that. Repeat that. Because
Yes,
we may not have got it. So an elder can
yes.
take their dependent, no, not
Their
their
child
dependent, their child to court for maintenance.
payments. Yep. So your child not maintaining you, they're not taking care of you financially, and you have a genuine need. Our laws here in Jamaica allows you to bring an action for
But
mental.
Mrs. Riley Dunn, you're now giving credence to the Jamaican proverb that says the child must now become the retirement fund for the elder. We don't want to encourage that really.
Oh, well, let me hear my elders speak about that, because the reality is, let us look at it from a different angle.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and I can speak from a position of knowledge of mothers who have spent all their life savings educating and maintaining their child. And
Right.
the child goes on, highly
Mm-hmm.
successful,
Mm-hmm.
making and dealing and wheeling. And I'm here in need of medical attention, and I ask for your help, and you're not helping me.
Yeah.
What happens to
We
that
weren't
woman?
raised like that. We weren't raised like that.
No, no. But there are persons who do it and they really
Mm-hmm.
just neglect. And again, as I said, the neglect, it can be financial, that they're
Mm-hmm.
in need, they're incapable. Pension. So I'm going to go ahead of myself. So let me go back to, other than the Maintenance Act, we do have in where our jurisprudence is regulated under that, under the concept. So it's not legislation, but it is what we call a, a law that is born out of the courts. And because of the longevity of it, it is considered a law even though it's not articulated in an act. And that is
Mm.
duty of care. So lawyers would use this term common law, but that's really what it is. I've done it so long that it is now considered a law, though it is not
Okay.
passed by act, parliament.
Understood.
And
Mm-hmm.
the duty of care is says that if there is a relationship between you and I, where because of my position I have to rely on you, so it's a dependency,
Mm-hmm.
then you have a duty to take care of me. So we look at the realities of the relationship.
Relationship. Okay.
And
Understood.
if you act in a way that breaches that duty that you have to me, that trust that I've relied on you, then and that breach results in injury,
Mm-hmm.
harm, or financial loss, then I can bring a claim against you for compensation.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
that's
think
the law.
yes. Just to interject, I think the seniors heard you. A few of them agree with the Maintenance Act. Miss
That's
Valerie
right.
says it is important for us to get back some of what we spend.
They turn up at funerals. I agree. Don't give it to me when I cannot spend it.
Oh
And
my
and
gosh.
then crying and behaving as if you were
Mm-hmm.
involved in my life all along, but you probably left me to die for hunger. I agree with you, Miss Donaldson. I
Wow,
agree.
wow, wow. So those are a few of the acts that we have in Jamaica, though we may not have an elder care or senior citizens act that protects our seniors against
Right.
abuse.
And where I would love to see Jamaica do now is to build out on what we have, build out on it. So I know we start from a position all the time. Oh, Jamaica is so terrible. Oh, Jamaica is so bad. And that's why I wanted to kind of just bring us to what other persons are doing. It's basically what we're doing. But we can do so much better. We really
Right.
can do so much better.
Yes,
And I
yes.
would love to see a build out of of support. I would love to see for us to have a tip line that's dedicated to elder care.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would love to see the provisioning where we have we have tougher laws, toughen up the Nursing Home Act, get stiffer penalties for breaches of that, for persons who are in that institution. So you have medical care. I also love that the UK said, look here, even if you're at home and you're not in a home, so you're not at a nursing home, because we have nursing home acts that speak
Mm-hmm.
about what you must do, the
Mm-hmm.
minimum requirement, what are the provisioning, and you have generally you have you have there is facility for the Ministry of Health to come and do inspections and so forth, and you have licensing procedures, but you don't have that for your home. And
Right.
typically, and I believe that the majority of elder abuse happens in the home where there isn't that kind of regulation. So one is
Mhm.
underreported in Jamaica simply because the elder is dependent on that person.
Mhm.
So if we
Mhm.
now put that person in a situation where they now don't have anyone, what we're doing to
Mhm.
our elders. So one,
Right.
make it a requirement for medical experience.
Right.
You're
As
going to
our
care.
Craig,
Yes,
yeah.
let
Mhm.
that be at the minimum. So you have to be trained. Don't be giving any medicine and you don't know what the medicine is for, or you don't know how to look out for adverse reactions to the medicine and let me sit down and dead. Don't do that
Right.
because you
Mhm.
don't know. And how can we now provide it for persons who may not have the money? That is where no social intervention is necessary.
But
For
Mrs. Riley
protection.
Dunn, considering that the laws are not as inclusive as the laws within our first world countries, does this pose a challenge for professionals like yourself in defending our senior citizens when they come before the courts in terms of abuse?
There isn't the there isn't an issue in terms of fighting for an elder using the tort I just spoke about in terms of duty for care. But what I
Oh.
really want is to really deal with the situations before it gets there.
Hmm.
Because remember, by the time you get to me and to court, you would have suffered a loss or an injury. And sometimes, unfortunately, it is the elder has died. And so now we're seeking compensation, and that elder has gone in situations that could have been preventable. So what I'm suggesting is preventable measures, quicker measures that we can intervene before we get to the court. Because once we get to the court, I believe that we have sufficient mechanisms in our laws that can allow for protection, for compensation. What we
Redress,
want,
yes. Mm-hmm.
yes, what we want is protection.
Sean. Mm-hmm.
So let's nip it in the bud before it gets to the point where you have to be compensated. And that's where we lack legislation.
That's a lovely point to pick up on. So we mentioned the Maintenance Act before.
Yes.
So provide our seniors now, give them some ammunition in terms of how they can protect themselves against elder abuse.
All right. Preparation. So right now, because we don't have any legislation for protection, this is what I would say to you. Plan. Lord, I know Jamaicans are like plan, but let's plan. You're in your 50s. You're in your late 40s. Plan. So you're going to put your finances in order. And part of putting your finances in order as you get older may very well be to set up a trust fund. So you have trust that you have advisors, you have financial banks that can provide, like, I have a fund on account and I only want you to give me X amount of dollars each
Mm,
month out of this.
mhm,
And you set up that because you've already worked out your budget and this is what I need to live on, and you put your mechanism in place. You know what? If things happen and I'm not able to go to the bank, who around me do I trust? Who around me is most responsible? And you have that one person and you have another person to check that one person. Watch out for me now. And you be vigilant. Be vigilant. And your plan doesn't have to be set in stone. You look what's happening and you put in some provisions for yourself.
mhm.
But I want to see in Jamaica in terms of legislation for persons who don't plan. That's where we need to plug the hole.
Right, right, right.
Right?
And to bring in one another comment, Miss Joan Pusey says she never know that a child is responsible to care for the parents and that we have a law for that. So
Yes, ma'am.
our seniors are being informed this evening through Golden Conversations. Thank you, Mrs. Riley Dunn.
You're most welcome.
So it's to protect our seniors, and
Yes,
I like what you said about the trust fund and have a financial agency that is a part of that process.
exactly.
But oftentimes when we go into the streets and speak with our seniors, they will sometimes say that it's the small acts of abuse that is so hurtful. So
Mm,
they want to go to the doctor, they don't have someone to go with them. They want to eat a particular type of meal that caregiver is not providing that for them. They don't want to cook that type of meal that they would want. It's
mhm.
it's also ensuring that they get their medications on time.
Yes.
So it's and even sometimes too, we may find that relatives may want to move into the spaces of our seniors. They want to take over their homes, and that becomes intrusive and uncomfortable for our seniors as well. So yes, we have the laws and we have some mechanism where we're getting there, but if you could provide some comfort for our seniors who are going through that day-to-day routine of dealing with that caregiver who is oftentimes their own child or another loved one, who is just insensitive to their needs and their concerns.
Yes, absolutely. That is definitely where, if you're capable, unfortunately, we don't have legislation for that, regrettably. And this is where now you would have to seek the assistance of community and friend if you have a relative that is intrusive in your home. And let me just touch on that one, because that was one of my early cases as a young lawyer at the bar. I had a client, elderly, wheelchair bound, and she added her daughter's name to the title. The day she did that, the daughter moved in with her boyfriend, three children, moved her out of the master bedroom and put her over a little side area that in the heyday would have been the housekeeper's quarters. And for days, she wouldn't see anybody. For days. And it was a complete takeover of her space. And she was tossed into one side. But where the cookie crumbled was that um, the daughter said to her one day, "This is not my house, and I think you need to leave, and I'm going to find you to put you in some home." And that is when she contacted me. Um, we are able, in law, to have people removed from your home that you do not want there. And that is through the process of recovery of possession. That's what it's called. But it's really an eviction. We can serve a notice. We will get the assist once a court order is obtained. We get the assistance of the court in order to have them whisked away from your home by force.
Mm.
Now, when it comes to your meals, what you prefer to eat.
Wow, wow, wow. Still,
One too
still,
fast? Yes.
yes, yes, yes. Wow.
Yeah, man. It was horrible. It was so horrible that I turned to her and I said, I mean no disrespect. But did you raise this young lady from birth? Because I wondered genuinely what would cause someone to treat their mother this way, because I have a fantastic relationship with my mother. I didn't understand this.
Mhm.
And she said, yes, from birth. So, you know what my advice is? No, and I have been saying it for the past 20 years. You want to leave property to your child? Put it in a will. Don't add them in for nothing. Because when you
Mm.
change your mind, you can rip up your will and make a new one. You don't need to. Parents sometimes believe that they know their children very well. And I know for this lady, she had never once thought her daughter would have treated her in this way. But it was horrible. It was horrible. And so you never know. You never ever know. Make your provisions other ways. You can. You have the option. So if you want, you add the child's name, but you make it very clear. This is not your house until I'm dead. I'm putting it on because, as a matter of convenience. Oh, I had another case. Uh, my client, she has about 6 children, and due to advice that she had received, she added the eldest to her title when the eldest at the time would have been about 18, 19. So skip forward now about 30 odd years later. Um, the daughter, that said daughter is moving, still living at the house, moving in different persons' house. Mother said, can't work. It's my house. Oh, you're being moving in people inside. And she just very much let her know, oh, no, 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 this is my house. And you can't tell me. And again, we had to do the same thing. So, one, had her evicted, and two, we had to go through the courts to have her name removed from the title.
Wow.
So, it's
Wow.
a court process. It allows for it, but it takes the time. So, to add the name, it takes just a marriage. You're married,
Mhm.
30 minutes. To add the name, probably about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how long it takes at stamp office. To remove it, we were in court for about 2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
And during that process, the person can still be living at the property.
Not under my government.
Okay.
But yes, they can.
All right. Thank We appreciate the free legal advice, Mrs. Riley Dunn. Thank you so much for empowering our golden conversations community with these examples of cases, real life examples, and those two examples that you shared. Um, let's just clarify. It happened in Jamaica.
Right here in Jamdown, right here. And I mean, there's so many more. I am going to court soon with a matter. It's an elderly who suffers from dementia who carried a complete stranger to the bank and added this stranger's name to all of his accounts. And the bank personnel allowed that to happen. No, that's another. Oh gosh, we can talk for hours on this, but
Okay.
that's another level of abuse that we don't have
Yeah.
enough protection. We
Right.
rely on the intuition and of course intuition is always experience based on the bank
Right.
clerk at a particular day at a particular time to be sensitive as to what
Mm-hmm.
is happening. Whereas if you put little money in the account, you have to give your name, your blood type, your your
Yes,
size of your
yes, yes,
clothes,
yes,
your
yes.
age, everything, yeah, to put a
Your
little money in the account.
your
Um,
dead parents' name.
your dead parents' name, your
Mm-hmm.
history, how much jobs you have.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody, an elder, a vulnerable, walk into that bank with a dead stranger and add the name to that account, and nobody asks a question. Something is wrong. And that, thankfully, we were able to catch that quickly because that man was ready to draw every red cent,
Oh wow. But listening to you talking about this scenario, Mrs. Riley Dunn, in moving forward, when we're talking about legislation in protecting our seniors and financial abuse, we may have to bring our financial institutions into the mix because oftentimes seniors are accompanied to financial institutions by a dependent.
That is correct. And they're accompanied by dependents who make transactions. So why can't we have certain red flags, just like how we have for suspicious transaction, there are some red flags,
Right.
frequency, the amount, have certain red flags for that will guide our banking institutions rather than
Mhm.
relying on each person's intuition. So that is
Mhm.
legislation that is needed here to tidy up that kind of protection that seniors need.
Right,
Because
right.
for this person, he didn't know what he was doing at that given moment at all. But had we had some questions that we could ask, then
Right.
perhaps, that banker at that time would have seen red
Alert.
flags.
Hmm.
Exactly,
Yes,
exactly.
to
So that is
protect.
legislation
Protect.
that we can put in for financial protection.
Wonderful. All right. So before we close, unfortunately, we're running out of time. The golden conversations usually run for approximately 35 minutes, but this evening's program has been so informative, and our seniors are loving it. A few of the comments coming in. I'm really happy for these advice. So again, Mrs. Riley Dunn, thank you for providing these free knowledge. We appreciate it. Miss Coleman is saying very interesting discussion. So, but just to bring back the conversation to protection, if you could just complete that statement as you were talking about how seniors can protect themselves. So, as you rightly said, before they come to you, what preventative measures that they can take.
Right. So I had mentioned about planning, that is your financial care. Speak to a financial advisor rather than your family member, because those are the persons who are trained in order to assist you. And yes, Valerie, they would also be trained about setting up your budget so that you can have money. We're living longer. 40 is the new 20, 50s are the new 30s. We're living longer. So
Mhm.
we really need to rely not on the corner man, your brethren, your church sister. Go to approved financial advisors and set that plan in motion. The earlier the better. The first sound advice I received before I received my first paycheck is plan for retirement. Do you have that pension fund? Now it is so much easier to set up your pension fund, because at first you had to be employed formally.
Mhm.
Now every institution has one that you just call by yourself and
Mhm.
you throw into the pot.
Mhm.
So that is something that you should explore as part of your planning. The other part of your planning that I really want to speak about is your medical plan. Have you asked
Mm.
yourself, suppose I have a medical emergency and I'm unable to give instructions to the doctor? Do I have a power of attorney in place that appoints a particular person or persons as my medical appointees? Because that
Mm.
becomes your reality. So that's part of your planning. So you can create a power of attorney that is your medical power of attorney. And that only becomes effective when you have a medical emergency and you're not able to give the doctor's instruction. So you can dictate rather than somebody flouncing themselves into the doctor's office. I am so and so and so. You would have already dictated that when you're in sound mind and body, what you want when you come to that point where you're not able to speak for yourself. So that's part of the planning.
Okay. One quick question regarding the appointee of a medical person. Can that appointee be another medical person, a medical professional?
It could be a medical practitioner or it could be a non-medical practitioner. It
Mm.
really just has to be someone you trust to make decisions for you medically, um, when you're unable to do so,
Okay.
right?
Thank you. Mhm.
So that is part of your build out plan. And you know what? Another part of your build out plan is also in terms of what's your support system around you. Like we don't even talk about that. That's
Mhm.
so much part of the loneliness and the psychological impact. What have you garnered around you? I remember, many years ago I had a client. She would lived in New York for donkey years, having to fight the snow and all of these things, and she decided to come back home. And what she did when she came home is that she built a community of support around herself in her district. So she had her church sisters, she had persons who lived on her road. These are
Mhm.
persons, just by her interaction with them, would pass. Miss, how
Mhm.
you look? How you stay today? Walk on. Sit on the veranda. It's so, those little things were so important to
Mhm.
her that when her children said, "Oh, Jamaica don't have no support for old people, come back to New York," she said, nope, nope, because that community of emotional support. Don't
Mhm.
vest it in one person. I
Or
mean,
one entity.
or one entity. Please
Mhm.
have a community. Um, I know that from my best friend's mom, that community was a lifesaver for her when she was battling cancer because she had a huge community. She didn't have to cook because her
Mm.
church brothers and sisters were just bringing things when she was at home from the hospital. And the phone call, how you feel today? When she felt like crying, that person was crying with her. So look around you. Don't say, "Lord, me not like people, me not chat to nobody," because you're gonna need people.
People.
We're
Yeah.
gonna need people. And
Mhm.
so just look around you and start to build your community, whichever
A
way.
service organization like the Rotary.
That's right. That's a nice plug. Yes. Work with that. Keep yourself active. Old
Mhm.
Boys Association, Old Girls Association is also an excellent community to be a part of.
Mhm.
And I know that there are really strong ones that Michael, that my dad loves to this day, at Old Hampton, oh gosh, Hampton Girls. Find that
Mhm.
community
Community.
wherever it is and keep in touch with that community. Your community may very well be your neighbors at an apartment complex or on your road, but just build out your community knowing that you're going to need it.
And sometimes they are the first to identify signs of abuse
Yes. More
because
than your
yes, because the
more than your
victim is
family
so
members.
close to it, they don't realize.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Riley Dunn. We have run out of time, but for persons who want to get in touch with you to get some more advice, can you please provide your contact information?
Certainly. My office is located at Suite 1, 22D, Old Hope Road, and that's on Kingston 5. My numbers are 906 556 906 8172. And of course, the area code is 876. And you can get me by email at info@nb, that's N as in Nelson, B as in Brown, G as in Guy, F as in Francis, jalaw.com. So that's info@nbgfjalaw.com.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Riley Dunn. Any final word for our elders?
Oh, I just say thank you so much for all that you've done in terms of nation building. And nation building is wide, and we're just grateful for it. What you do for children, what you do for our entities, our corporate entities, our schools, our hospitals, thank you. And definitely, we know that there are many voices that are in Jamaica that are championing for your cause. Is NB as in boy, not D.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
That are championing for your cause, and lend your voice to it. It's so important to hear from you as well as to what your realities are so that we can ensure that this is crafted for you. Shelly and I are going to be speaking some more about dementia as one of our pet
Mhm.
areas at Rotary Club, at Rotary International. And so just to let you know that this is part of all the voices that we're putting in, and we want to hear from you too.
Well said, well said, well said. Is Thank you so much. Is this correct now, Mrs. Riley
That is
Dunn?
it. Yes.
Okay. So that is your email address for our seniors who want to get in touch with you. And the gratitudes are coming in. They're saying thank you. They're saying very useful information, wise counseling. Thank you. Just want to share some of the thank you. Very informative coming from Enid Ferguson. So thank you also to our viewers and subscribers. We could not have done this without you. Continue to log on every second Tuesday and every fourth Tuesday to Golden Designs as we discuss matters of interest to our elder community. And a final word to our seniors, do enjoy tomorrow, Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Go out, learn as much as you can, arm yourself with the right information so you can continue to live a well protected life. Have a good evening. Take care, everyone, and see you again soon. Bye.